Rome also appoints 2 new consuls to lead the men into battle, Gnaeus Servilius Geminus and Gaius Flaminius. Their target, Hannibal. Their mission, seek and destroy. In the spring of 217 BC, the Romans decide that the best way to block Hannibal's advance southward is to divide their forces. Geminus travels northeast to coastal Ariminus. Flaminius heads northwest to Arretium, but they leave a southern route open through the marshes of the lower Arno River Valley.
Now, the Arno marshes were an enormously large, swampy area created by the Arno River. I mean, it's full of muck, insects, snakes. It is a terrible natural barrier, so much so that neither of the Roman commanders blocking the roads on either side thought anyone would be crazy enough to try to march through these marshes. Well, Hannibal is known for doing the unexpected, and don't you know, he tries to penetrate these marshes.
The surprise maneuver does prove costly for Hannibal.
While riding atop Sirius, his last remaining elephant, Hannibal is supposedly stung in the eye by an insect. He gets infected, and he becomes blind in that eye.
But Hannibal remains unstoppable. He slips through the 2 Roman forces and arrives at Tuscany, a Roman ally, and torches the landscape.
Hannibal starts burning the Tuscan plain. Houses, towns, slaughtering animals, chopping down trees.
Hannibal's plan, destroy the area and infuriate the Roman general Flaminius, who watches the devastation from the city walls of Arretium.
And Flaminius is just horrified by it. He's horrified not only so much that this area is being destroyed, but he knows what Hannibal is doing.
Instead of attacking Flaminius inside the city walls, Hannibal is sending a message to other Roman allies.
And what Hannibal is saying to that ally is, if you stay with Rome, this is what you can expect. He's trying to woo that ally away. And Flaminius also knows that it's a sign of Roman weakness that you cannot stop this.
Hannibal knows his enemy well and wants to lure Flaminius onto the battlefield.
Why? That's his plan. Destroy as many Roman armies, kill as many Romans as you can until the Roman Senate tires of war and sues for peace. You can't do that with siege warfare. You've got to draw the enemy out into battle.
Hannibal continues to taunt Flaminius by marching his army right past the walls of Arretium, flaunting his courage and power.
Hannibal is just far enough away to tease Flaminius. He's really saying, come on, if you've got any courage, you'll leave your little protective fort and come and fight like a man.
Finally, Flaminius takes the bait.
Hannibal leads Flaminius on a wild chase across Tuscany. He stays a day or 2 ahead, which allows him to survey the terrain and pick the most advantageous place to fight.
Moving quickly, Hannibal and his 30,000 men race past the small village of Pasignano into a hilly forest along Lake Trasimene. Flaminius is in hot pursuit. The road leads Hannibal, now on horseback, through what's known as a defile, a narrow passage between the mountains and the lake's shoreline.
By now, all of Hannibal's elephants are dead. And as he marches into this defile, this narrow passage between the cliffs and the lake, he becomes immediately aware of the landscape's tactical advantages.
Hannibal has discovered the perfect location for his next battle. It comes with its own natural advantage.
In the morning, a thick fog comes off the lake and obscures the entire valley. It's made-to-order camouflage.
Hannibal orders some of his men to camp at the far end of the valley, in plain view of all who pass through the defile.
We're told that Hannibal sends scouts far ahead into the hills to light campfires. He wants to convince the Romans that he's farther away than he actually is.
Still chasing Hannibal, Flaminius reaches Pasignano and sends a reconnaissance team into the defile.
They come back and it's too narrow. There can't be any possibility of ambush. The next day, around dawn, the Roman army begins to move through the defile.
As Flaminius reaches the valley, the eerie lake fog rolls in once again. In the distance, Flaminius can see the fires of Hannibal's camp on the hill.
Flaminius thinks, I finally got him. I've got Hannibal trapped, and it's time to tear him apart.
Flaminius orders 6,000 Roman soldiers to rush up the hill and attack Hannibal.
The legion double times, gets out there, climbs the hill, and smashes into Hannibal's camp.
The Romans hack at Hannibal's rearguard infantry in wild combat. Suddenly, Hannibal's men turn and run, enticing the Roman soldiers to pursue. Hannibal then springs one of the deadliest traps in military history. Hannibal Barca of Carthage is about to spring one of military history's greatest traps. 30,000 Carthaginian infantry and cavalry rise out of the morning fog and smash into the stunned Roman force. The bloodbath begins. The battle rages along the shores of Lake Trasimene in northwest Italy. Hannibal's Spanish and African heavy infantry hit the Roman front. Wild Celtic tribesmen strike the center. Numidian light cavalry crush the Romans from the rear.
Romans are trapped. And it is terrible. They're in line of march. They're not even set for combat formation. Their weapons on out, and they're taken right in the flank by this large army, and it just slaughters them. It slaughters them.
Hannibal makes two big gambles at Trasimene. First is that the fog will return to hide his 30,000 men in the hills. Second, that Flaminius will jump at his decoy camp. And he wins both bets.
Out of 20,000 men, 15,000 die in about 3 hours, including Flaminius himself. Hannibal's losses, 1,500. That's a kill ratio of 10 to 1.
In one of the most successful ambushes in history, another Roman army has been wiped out. At age 27, Hannibal is already a legendary military tactician.
In less than 2 years, Hannibal has handed Rome 3 catastrophic defeats. 2,000 men at Ticinus, 30,000 at Trebia, and now 15,000 more at Trasimene. Rome had never seen such a series of defeats in its history.
In the face of this defeat, the Roman Senate makes a bold, perhaps desperate decision. They vote to appoint a temporary dictator over the military to put an end to Hannibal's reign of terror. He is Quintus Fabius Maximus.
Selecting a dictator is extremely rare in Roman history. They highly value their republic, and so the idea of handing absolute power to one man isn't taken lightly. In fact, the position came with an automatic time limit of 6 months.
Fabius raises an army of 90,000 men, the largest yet in Roman history. But he isn't going to use them in direct combat against Hannibal.
Fabius is an excellent strategic thinker. He takes one look around, looks at the Roman manpower, naval resources, food resources, the geography, and then compares them with Hannibal's small army, away from home, can't resupply, no navy. He concludes quite correctly that Hannibal can't win, that essentially there's no point to continue to try to defeat Hannibal in the field.
And this becomes the famous Fabian strategy. Do not engage the enemy in head-to-head battle. Harass him. When he sends foraging teams to look for food, kill them. If anybody provides sanctuary in a small town, burn the place down.
Fabius's strategy leaves Hannibal and his men hungry and tired. They are constantly hunted and harassed and never able to resupply.
Fabius' strategies were not only good, they were exactly the strategy that Rome needed to stop a man like Hannibal, whose whole tactical and strategic vision was based on fighting battles. To have a strategy that's battle-centric, you have to have an enemy who obliges. By refusing to give battle, Fabius denied Hannibal to fight the war that he wanted to fight.
This is a strategy that would work, but the problem is, like all strategy, it depends on political will. It depends on the political will of the Senate to essentially continue the Fabian strategy, perhaps for 3, 4, 5 years. Well, what happens is, this is not the Roman way.
Despite the strategy's success so far, the impatient Roman Senate forces Fabius to resign after 6 months. They return to their more typical mode of government with the election of 2 civilian co-consuls. Paulus and Varro are chosen and directed to defeat Hannibal as quickly as possible. Varro wants to fight Hannibal in an all-out war. Paulus, however, does not want to be lured into battle.
This is problematic because there's a combination of 2 Roman armies. The 2 co-consuls, Paulus and Varro, trade off command every other day. It may sound insane, but one day Paulus was the supreme commander, the next day Varro. Hannibal is well aware of this and knows who he'd rather fight.
Hannibal's strength is in face-to-face combat, and he wants to fight Varro's war. Hannibal gathers his intelligence, lies in wait, then sends in a strike team just as Varro takes command.